morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Might not be able to see him, but I got my ace in the hole in the back seat with me. There you go. Can't get to see the week look better, but good morning. Log in. Today I am talking about a very interesting topic that I had with a very special individual last night. And as I was sitting and having a conversation, and I've had this conversation over the years with some family members, and you know, when people have them all the time, we talk about generational curses. Generational curses could be good or bad. It just depends on how you choose to look at them. Sometimes with generational curses, the way that I feel like God breaks those curses is several ways. One is the one that I think everybody knows of, and that's prayer. Like, that is the biggest, prayer. But a lot of times we don't see on the other side of the prayer how God chooses to break those curses. Sometimes he may use situations, you know, he uses people, but one of the biggest factors that I think is fair to say is he uses people to bridge the gap between an old way and a new way. And I feel like in today's culture, where we are as a people, and I'm not talking about just black people, I'm talking about Americans, period, is whether, and I might be wrong, I feel like Americans are cursed. We're cursed with an old way of thinking. We're cursed with things that are not right, depending on what your ethnic group is or your race is, as if that's normal. I can speak specifically for blacks. Part of our normalcy for generations was the way our parents, cousins, whoever, the elders in the family spoke to the children, the way they spoke to the children, the way they treated the children. All those things were considered normal at one point in time. That kid was jumping. How they spoke to us at one point in time, you know, how they treated us at one point in time. We weren't allowed, or our parents' parents were not allowed. Oh, Melina said, good morning. The way our parents treated their children, you know, you weren't allowed to talk back to adults. You weren't allowed to ask adults questions, you know. And I'm speaking for the black community. I'm not speaking for nobody else's. But as generations have moved forward as far as the black community, and we're going to say over the last 200 years, our community has become a little bit more understanding. Even though we've become a little bit more understanding, we still hold on to different traditions and different values. And one of those values is respect, not going in depth. Just try to stick to the topic at hand. Generational curses, how they're being broken. How those generational curses are either being broken or they're being strengthened. Good, bad, or indifferent. If we look at America, we know America was started on the back of slaves. We know that America was started, and the black culture has been brainwashed over the years into thinking that we were less than any human. These are curses that were put on us, not based on what the Bible says. The Bible never cursed black folk. I'm not going in depth in that part. Good morning, Maria. So, as we continue to move forward, some people's families, it just looks like they're just destined to continue to fail. You know, you still have certain members of your family that just refuse to let go of the past situations. And that's because nobody showed them anything differently as far as family is concerned. Society has shown us different, so I'll use mine. My family has a lot of positives and a lot of negatives, like most families. But a lot of, how can I put this? Because I'm trying not to, I don't want to say too much, but I don't want to say not enough. So I'm going to step away from that. There are people in everybody's family that has been born and raised in a generation or a generation ahead, or they come at the end of a generation and they're expected to continue to do what the rest have done. You have families that their children's children are exceeding the family's expectations. You will turn around and hear people say, well, you know, that family's, they just got a whole lot of issues. You know, they do this and they do this. There's a, you look at it, I'm gonna go back because I'm jumping. And I'm jumping because of the fact there's some things I just don't want to say. Because I feel like I'm impeding and I'm giving up too much, too early. But going back to American history, so blacks were not taught to read. But when we were allowed to start reading, we were given a watered down version of the Bible. Everybody know the Bible, the 66 books anyway. The Bible is like that thick, 66 books. Those books give great information, but they come up short because it's a lot of open-ended information. But then you continue when it comes to the blacks of that time, you know, the slaves, they were given books of the Bible that were a condensed version of 3 books. You know, they might have taken Proverbs, maybe Psalms, maybe a couple of the Old Testament book, New Testament books, and they put them in these little condensed versions, and they were incomplete. So as a people, we're learning how to read, and everything that we were reading at that time, we took it at face value. But as we continue to grow spiritually, guess what ends up happening? Things begin to change. Here we are now, 200 years, 200 years removed from slavery, and all of those generational curses on America are either starting to be broken or they are starting to be exposed. They're being exposed for what they are. History is low-key repeating itself because these curses have not been completely broken, but a lot of the things that has happened in America has been brushed under the rug. Now we are running into a place to where if you were born in the 70s or the 80s, doesn't matter early or late, those 2 generations are starting to see things for what it is and not for what society wants us to see. We're speaking up and we're standing up. So the generational curses and the things that have happened to us in the past as a culture in America are no longer standing firm. And everybody wants to turn around and make statements, oh, this is not what it is, oh, people are starting to be exposed. Nah, people have been exposed. Now it's starting to become a factor that everybody's starting to become aware. I know everybody's on social media, everybody sees it, you know, they're talking about the Ethiopian Bible. I haven't had the opportunity or the privilege to lay my hands on it or to actually read it for myself. But some of the information, what's up, Greyheart? But some of the information that I've been privileged to hear makes a lot of sense because it's starting to make a lot of sense to some of the information that we're given in the Bible the American Bible, that King James nonsense, starting to make it make sense. Starting to, some of what I've heard out of the Ethiopian Bible, it's like, oh, now I get it. Because a lot of it has been watered down and sugar-coated. Like, majorly. You hear about the story of Noah and his sons and his sons' sons and his grandfather, all of these different stories. And the Ethiopian Bible, certain books start to tell you certain information. But you turn around and you think for thousands of years, hundreds of years, we haven't had access. So now we're at a place to where all this stuff is starting to become available and nobody can water it down, no matter how much they want to. So you turn around and you look at your family structure, and you start to notice that if your family has a generational curse on it, and that curse is carried from whether that curse is family molestation, pedophilia, drug addicts, things that we know exist in the black community. Now I'm speaking for us. A lot of our children and our aunties and uncles' children aren't going in that direction anymore. They're not accepting the norm of being beat on just because a parent feels like that's what they're supposed to do. So, and parents and family members are being exposed because now you have children that are no longer accepting what's being done inside their families. It did, Harris. So now the family generational curses are being broken within the black community, which is starting to make it where the generational curses on America are starting to be broken, because you start looking at a lot of the political seats that are being voted on. You no longer have certain people sitting in those seats. We have a lot of our black leaders in the last 5 to 10 years that have been dying, that have been the spokesperson or the spokespeople for us as a culture. I mean, for a perfect example, I'm 47, I'll be 48. So I can say in my almost 48 years of me living, Jesse Jackson is probably, for me, the most notable, outside of Louis Farrakhan, blacks that has spoken up for black people, has done it consistently. The downside for Jesse is, because culture is changing, his message was no longer being received, because all of the negatives that Jesse has had his hands on, based off of what culture wants to say, or what people want to say, is what most people are looking at. They've made, outside of black America, they've made it a negative. Or they've taken what Jesse has done up until him passing and took his voice away, with all of the good that he did. But now you have our civil rights leaders from the old West, is what I'm gonna call it. They're moving on to a better place, and now you have the new guard that are standing and are not taking the bullshit that is being thrown at us the way that it has been done in the past. So now you look at society and you look at your home front. In society, you have young ladies like Jasmine Crockett. I'm gonna even use this idiot because he says some stuff sometimes that just don't make sense. Stephen A. Smith, Dr. Umar. You have all of these podcasts, Charleston White. And I'm not going into like naming everybody, but I'm just giving like a platform of a select people that we hear. Oh, D.L. Hughley, Steve Harvey, that have given some insights in today's time. They're a little younger, under 60. I said that way, under 60, and they're exposing truths. Whether we agree with the truths or not, they're exposing them. And now as a culture, we're starting to see it. And we're starting to become more aware, and we're not accepting. Like, I can turn around and use, I don't know if Damon's still on here, starting to use our platforms or their platforms to make things make sense. So the old West or that old guard is starting to move away or being moved out of the way so the younger generation can start to speak up. But the catch-22 to that is the younger generation has to find their why and their what for them to continue to move us forward. Because as a culture, we're no longer accepting the norms that has been placed on us. We're no longer accepting, well, you can't because you don't have. You can't because you don't understand. There's no longer that point of reference anymore, because there's too many things that are being exposed and too many things that are accessible for us to turn around and make those changes. So then when you go back to your family curses, you don't have as many drug addicts. You don't have as many pedophiles. You don't have as many failures in your family. And those failures can cover just about anything that we once had. Because now you have people that are starting to accept the fact that their mental health is more important than anything else. They are willing to do what it takes for them to get their mental health in order. So, with that being said, about to drop off my right-hand man in the back seat, my mini-me, Mr. Robbins himself. Come on, big dog.
Okay.
Come on. Tell everybody hey.
Hey.
Come on. Say hello. Say hello. That's my boy.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right, I'm signing off. Appreciate you all for listening.